Today we have a very special guest joining us. He's a former NFL linebacker and was drafted by the Green Bay Packers in 2013. He had an impressive career playing for several teams and was the Packers' Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee in 2015 due to his philanthropic efforts. But Sam's journey wasn't without its challenges. In a controversial turn of events, he was cut from the NFL, possibly due to his support for Colin Kaepernick's stance against racial injustice. Despite this setback, Sam has showed incredible resilience and determination. Today, Sam is the president of Skyler, Crane and Rigging, where he continues to make a significant impact off the field. We'll be diving into his inspiring story, discussing his NFL career, his support for social justice, and his transition into the business world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation with the incredible Sam Barrington. Sam Barrington, thank you for joining me, brother. Appreciate you.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm just going to jump right into it. First question I have for you, Sam, is can you share a little bit about your upbringing and how it influenced your career path, both in football and beyond?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Anytime I'm talking to people, I tell them like, man, anytime something special happens, I'm like, this would be a different chapter or a different page in a book.
Yeah.
And so, it's 15 years ago this month that, I arrived here at the University of South Florida. Growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, very humble beginnings. It was one of the roughest cities, not only in the state, but in America at the time. And I saw everything a kid shouldn't see.
Yeah.
By the time I got ready to leave high school, whether it be violence, drug usage, poverty, and all of those things. But there's so many good things about my childhood that I could talk about. And I think one of the best things about my childhood and where I am today was that I was able to retain some of the lessons that I learned. And so, you talk about resiliency and the importance of resiliency, as you're transitioning from the game, as you're getting into a world of sport. Into the world of business. You also talk about things like perseverance, teamwork gained through the game of football. Just so many things that I learned that, I'm able to use as an adult, and it's helping me in my life. Discernment, finding out the concept of discernment as a young man and then applying it in real time in life today has been vitally important to me. Not only as a business owner, but as a father as well.
I love it. We talk a lot about fatherhood on this show. And like I said, this is all about giving back. And so I appreciate you sharing that. It's interesting. Most people we talk to that we see or that I've had conversations with that have found success, whether it be in business or sports, there's kind of that common thread. Many of them have been through something, and it's those traits that you develop that are transferable, that you develop throughout life going through some of those setbacks that make you forced to be reckoned with in the real world. So, Sam, one thing that I love most about your journey is really the success that you've had beyond the football field. I'm in business, and so I think it's neat to be able to talk to an athlete and then see them find success in business.
Yeah.
What are some pivotal moments or experiences that shaped your professional development in business and or sports?
Well, I'll talk about football first. I definitely want to say it was probably my injury that that I had my third year in the NFL. The reason why that injury, kind of shaped me a lot was the timing in which it happened. I was going into my third year. I just come off of a tremendous sophomore season, and fans, the team, my teammates, everybody was high up on me. It was like I was that guy in the middle, and I had everything right out in front of me. And so, we prepare and we dream for those moments, and I was there, and I was on the cusp of doing something really special. And then I had that injury. And so it's like, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Do you soak yourself in disappointment? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you give up? What are you doing? I was faced with that reality, and I had to make a decision. And for me, I probably sat down for about 2 weeks and drank my sorrows away right down there in my basement. But shortly thereafter, I really just got to work, and I said, I can't do many things on the field because of my ailment, but I'm gonna do a lot off the field. And so when you saw a lot of my philanthropic efforts come to fruition during my time in the league, it was while I was hurt. And so that was me exercising the ability to pivot, right?
Yeah.
And to be diverse and be creative with my output. I think just before that, we had a really stellar year. And we went on and we lost in the NFC Championship. We were probably the best team in the NFL that year, but we lost to Seattle on a botched play. That also prepared me because, it's like you can do everything you're supposed to do, and you get to you get to where you're supposed to go. You get to the pinnacle of whatever it is in your sport, and then you don't make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it just shows you like how important it is to work hard, seize the moment. And, I talk about construction, but I also talk about football. Construction and football is so similar because they all come down to an inch.
Yeah.
If you're building this drywall right here and the top panel is an inch more, an inch offline with the bottom panel, that drywall ain't getting set. It's the same thing in the game of football. So many plays, so many games, so many wins and losses come down to an inch.
Yeah.
And that just teaches you to be precise and to, capture every moment. And I try to take that as a lesson in my life today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, just thinking about team sports in general, even in my own career, I think about communication. I think about just the leadership traits you develop and how transferable those skills are when you get into the real world. But when you're playing sports, that real world or the business world that you're thinking about, it can seem like it's a long shot or something that's in the distance. But as you get into it, it's funny how many things that you learned in sports that you apply to business.
Yeah, I agree. And to be quite honest with you, I speak to a lot of former athletes who have an interest in getting into, business. And I think the skill set is there. Now, just because you were a successful athlete doesn't mean you can get into the world of business and be successful. Yeah. But you got a baseline and you got a foundation, right? A skill foundation that a normal person doesn't have. Yeah. But what I want to emphasize is you can't skip the necessary work or preparation to become astute at whatever it is that you want to do in business. And I think sometimes, guys, we're guilty of getting really high up on our athletic ability and think that really transfers into the real world. But you have to do the necessary work. You have to do some R&D for whatever field you really want to get into. For me, I talk about research and development so much because it was a step that I missed because my family was already in the industry and I just kind of got put in position to an extent. But it's so important because you're able to capture information that a lot of people don't find out until they're in business. And sometimes you don't get past some of those hiccups, but you're able to foreshadow some of the hiccups that you might have if you do, the necessary preparation and business planning before you actually get into business. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with, not just athletes.
Absolutely. So Sam, I've heard you talk a lot about, just in previous interviews, your father, but I wanted to ask you, who was that player that you looked up to or you admired during your time in the NFL or maybe coming up?
Yeah. Growing up, I want to definitely say it was Ray Lewis.
Okay.
And it was, he was the best linebacker, right? And everything about Ray Lewis embodied, leadership. He was a very fierce player. He was a game changer. And so for me, I modeled my game after Ray Lewis. Now, I didn't accomplish nowhere near as what Ray did, but I can tell you what, for that fixed period of time, I was a force to be reckoned with. And, still, even today, you see some of the things that he's doing off the field. It's a very tremendous thing. He's a family. It's a beautiful thing. He's a family man or whatever the case may be. But crazy enough, man, I was always, it's not that I don't respect the game. It's not that I don't respect other players, but I never really had, role models growing up.
Yeah.
If I'm honest with you. And even in the game, it was like I value what Ray did for the game. And it's a quest that I'm still trying to figure out. I don't really have a lot of role models. I have people that I admire. But I think what it is I'm working to become something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And so how do you find that in the real world and say, you know what, I want to model my life after that. I haven't seen it.
It's probably bits and pieces maybe that you're taking from people.
Definitely bits and pieces. I don't want to sound like I'm not, I can't humble myself before people who've done great things. There's people that I admire. There's people whose relationship I cherish.
Yeah.
There's people that, that I would deem a mentor. But I think that's the biggest component. And even as a child, it was like, who do you look up to? I mean, I admired my parents. I was thankful for my parents, but I guess, and that's the thing, I think a lot of kids in inner city neighborhoods or underprivileged communities go through. It's just like they want to become something that they can't necessarily see and conceptualize in their immediate circle and their immediate community. They see it on TV, they can read about it in a book, but if you can't touch it, how do you know that it's something that you can do? And I think that's what my childhood was like, right? I wanted to become something that I hadn't seen in real life before.
Yeah. And that's probably pretty motivational in terms of, being that role model for others and the role that you hold at the school. I bet you pull from that. So, Sam, I wanted to tell you, I had the opportunity to experience a number of games in 2016 at Lambeau Field. I had a buddy that had season tickets. I actually met him in business, and he invited me out. I think it was for a Seahawks game, and they picked Russell Wilson off like 5 times. And the team went on this run, and we started winning. And he just said I was the lucky charm and keep coming back to Lambeau. And I think the Packers won 5 straight. We went to the playoffs. We flew to Dallas and watched them in Dallas when they beat Dallas. And I got a new boss that called a meeting on a Sunday. We missed the Atlanta game where they would have gone to the Super Bowl. And they lost. Yep. And I always look back and think, man, if I'd have gone to that game, the Packers might have had another ring. But I wanted to ask, could you, I knew what it felt like as a fan walking into Lambeau, in the snow. And just, to me, that experience, nothing touched that experience. I've done everything in sports. But I wanted to ask you, can you describe what playing for the Packers meant to you?
Yeah. It's one of those things where you don't realize what you got until it's gone.
Yeah.
I knew it was a special opportunity at the time, but not until you get outside of it and you're traveling all around the world and you're in Hong Kong at a little lounge and you overhear somebody speaking about the opportunity, right? Or the possibility for them to one day go to a game in Lambeau Field, right? Pretty special experience. And I'm so thankful for that point in time in my life. And I think because I was able to do that at a young age, that's why I'm kind of Uncle Sam now at only 33 years old. Yeah. Because I got the opportunity to experience the fantasy part. And now it's just like living in reality, doing the day-to-day things, being a full-time father or whatever the case may be. But Lambeau Field was very special, man. And sometimes I'll go back and I've taken my oldest daughter there because she was obviously growing up while I was in the NFL. But I look forward to taking my entire family there and just having that experience. But even they won't realize that, hey, your dad actually walked out of the same tunnel with Paz. They brought me up for an autograph signing here about 2 years ago. It was a hell of an experience. I mean, to see those fans again, the best fans in the land. Obviously, the community owns the team, and so that's a very special connection that you don't see in other communities across the NFL. But it was a dream come true. And truth be told, I still have trouble explaining what the experience was like. I definitely think it was a dream come true.
One of my first guests, he's a good friend of mine, was with Oscar Grant the night he was killed on the BART train. Yeah. And the movie Fruitvale Station was eventually made after those events. I happened to be in St. Louis and went to Ferguson right after Michael Brown was killed. I stood there, in the same spot he was. I was in that neighborhood. When I was in Denver, I still remember sitting at a stoplight and seeing a gal. I didn't know at the time who it was, but she had a handwritten note on the side of her car about the cops killing her son, who turned out to be Elijah McClain, that I learned about after George Floyd blew up, and after the George Floyd incident, and that story became national news. Yeah. And so I have this connection to it, and I know your experience speaking out for Colin Kaepernick, which eventually led to you being cut pretty quickly after by the Packers, along with some other players. I wanted to. The first question I have about that is, I just want to ask you, would you do it again?
You know what? That's a hell of a question. The first thing I'll say is I can't tell you 100% certain that is why I was released from the Packers. Yeah. But if you look at the context of the entire situation, the one outlier was me being verbal about my support for Colin Kaepernick at a time where a lot of people weren't necessarily being verbal about it. And to be quite honest with you, I'd do it again.
Yeah.
There's nothing really about my life that I necessarily regret. There's some things that obviously if I could do it over again, I would probably make a different decision, but regret, no. And I think it's, sometimes it troubles me because we live in a world where we're kind of forced through social media and the mass production of news. We have to, take in a lot of stuff on a day-to-day.
Yeah.
I don't think really people realize the magnitude. I don't think people recognize the real value of what Colin Kaepernick did.
Yeah.
At the time in which he did it, and never talked to him about it before. He and we actually trained together down in Miami before that. But I'm forever thankful for him, and I think whoever can feel any type of way about it. But when you look at what he did and at the timing in which he did it, you have to mention him in the same conversation as Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And maybe Muhammad Ali, what he was able to do in the ring has surpassed what Colin Kaepernick was able to do. And I'm gonna get to my point, was able to do on the field.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, Colin Kaepernick was Lamar Jackson before Lamar Jackson was Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean?
And he didn't get the shot in the years to follow.
Man, let me tell you, Colin Kaepernick put 200 plus rushing yards on a really good Green Bay Packers defense.
Yeah.
And he did it to anybody. And so it's unfortunate because, we didn't get to see him meet his full potential on the football field. I think Colin Kaepernick might have been in year 3 or 4 when he was, having as much success as he was, maybe a little more if I'm not mistaken. But I think it's all about timing, and this is the message that I want people to capture. When it comes to speaking out about your personal beliefs, it is important. You should never, in this world, I believe you should never have to suppress your true feelings. Yeah. And we're seeing it now more today with the LGBTQ movement.
Yep.
We're seeing it all across America. But my belief is there's a strategy behind getting it done. And when you're climbing the ladder, you have to measure the value of speaking out against the value of securing your position.
Okay.
And I was in a very delicate position at the time. I had just come back from an injury. And could I probably have suppressed that statement for a while and got to the other side and secured some money first? Sure. But it's not guaranteed that would have happened, for one. And two, that's why it's really important to have advisors around you and listen to your advisors and be transparent with your advisors about who you are. Because maybe my team and, at the time, publicists or marketing, whatever the case may be, they would have advised me, hey, Sam, let's hold off this statement.
Yeah.
But I literally was just reading articles and I was like, man.
Yeah, it's hard not to get fired.
He's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I dropped a tweet. I support Colin Kaepernick 100%. I was home 6 days later.
Wow.
And it happens that fast, but I don't regret it, man. I'm so thankful for the time I got to spend in the NFL. I'm thankful for that experience. I'm thankful that I'm able to draw a lesson from that experience and learn from it and apply it in my life now.
Well, thank you for sharing. And
Sure.
and I'm not going to have you answer this because I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, put me on the spot.
No, but it's something I'm going to ask of you because you're somebody in my research and that I've studied that, I do admire. You've had a great career, not only in football, but seeing the role you hold with the university. I know how important personal branding is. I want to ask something of you. I want to ask if you'll take a look at my social media. Lately, I've returned home to Portland.
Sure.
And I've seen my city just in devastation.
Yeah.
And I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've started to talk about. And, I'm seeing our campus library taken over by this group. I've seen our public buildings downtown. I'm seeing, foil and drugs on the streets that I used to walk my kids in. 98% of businesses have seen property crime,
Wow.
shit that for me is like close to home.
Yeah.
And so I've started to be vocal on that. And I know that comes with risk. And so I want to ask you if you would look at it for me and tell me what you think.
But I'm gonna tell you, so let's talk about the risk that's associated with it. You know what I mean? That's why ownership and equity is so important, because when you get to a point where you're like nobody can fire you.
Yeah.
Now, are you limited on the brand deals that you can get in relationships based upon the content that you put out?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some limits there, but the best thing about our world now is I think there's a niche for everybody.
Yeah.
There's a group, there's an ecosystem that you can thrive in, irregardless of the content that you put out.
Got it.
We got people doing hundreds of millions of views a month, a year, or whatever the case may be, that all they talk about is bullshit.
Yeah.
And so if they can do it, you can do it. And it all comes down to the strategy behind finding that niche, finding that group, and finding, I'm not necessarily a media or marketing person, but you get where I'm going. It's just about finding your tribe, right?
Yeah.
Because there's people who feel the same way as you, might not necessarily be from Oregon, but Oregon's your hometown?
Yeah.
That might not necessarily be from Oregon, but bro, I feel the same thing about Duval County.
Yeah.
I love my city. I don't go back home as much as I would like to, because it's the same thing,
Yeah.
And it's fueled by music. You got a lot of these kids that's killing each other. We got a kid that just got killed, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
All behind music.
Was that the Jacksonville killing? Yeah. Crazy.
And the thing is that's been going on since I was in high school. Those two neighborhoods beefing with each other.
Wow.
Thing is, them kids ain't got no ownership in those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's all things that are very trivial, that, truth be told, on a grand scheme of things, don't really mean anything. You know what I mean? But we're watching these young men perish day by day.
Yeah.
Whether it's prison, whether it's, I call it somewhat of a passive genocide, right?
Yeah.
But you see all of these things happening to these young men, and it's just like we've become very desensitized.
Yeah.
It happens, we swipe, man, that's crazy. Tomorrow we're on to another thing. We're watching another young person get killed.
Yeah.
And I think, to get back to my original point, there's a group of people out here who would love to hear you speak.
Yeah.
Sometimes what we have to do is just dismantle the vision that we have for ourselves, and when it comes to the potential partnerships or groups that you can work with, sometimes we just have to say, you know what? I just got to continue to look. I got to find my group. I got to find my consumer base.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen overnight. We talked about it, research and development.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Finding your consumer base so that you can be your authentic self, okay? And people can get what they need to get from it.
Got it.
That's a message. That's validation. Validation is so important these days. There's millions and millions and millions of people who feel the same way you do. And you never know, you might be the person that changed the narrative that helps them feel validated in their feelings. So by all means, bro, don't stop.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you.
For sure.
Can you share a particularly memorable or impactful moment you shared with a coach during your career?
Yeah, I'd have to go back down memory lane. I quickly want to reference a situation I had in high school. Greg Stanton, he was my first high school football coach, and he helped me get started. Showed me how to lift weights the right way. And I fell in football. Very, very, very strict coach. But I fell in love with the game by playing football for that man, right? Hard. He worked us really hard. But at the end of the day, I was alongside my brothers. Literally, I had a younger brother that played on the team.
Okay.
And he, he showed me how to be a ball player, And I remember one day I was a sophomore and I was just kind of struggling. And I wasn't performing as well as I could. And for him, he needed to win some games. So he needed to put the best players on the field. And so just so happened one day, I don't know why, but I needed a ride home, and I only live about 10 minutes away from the school. And so I asked him, Coach, would you mind taking me home, man? You got to think it's 70 kids on the team. And it just so happened that he and I were in the same, he was like, yeah, no problem. So he's taking me home, and he just got to talk to me about life. And he gave me a quote that I still use today. He says, Sam, football ain't a matter of life and death, but it teaches you how to deal with life and death. And then, he got in front of my house and he parked, and he said, son, I love you. But, if you don't perform better, I'm gonna have to replace you. And I was like, man, if that ain't the best form of love that a young man can ask for.
Yeah.
You feel me? Because I think a lot of times, you know, young people, we sugarcoat things to them. And hell, when he told me that was all I needed to hear, because I definitely didn't want to lose my spot. And so I literally just went back to the drawing board and I just bust my behind, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. I mean, he started having me split reps with the upperclassmen. But you know, sure enough, I got it together, and you know, I was able to close out my sophomore year and play some really good football. But I just think of that moment because I could have complained, I could have tucked my tail, but that was one of those moments where I look back where it's like, man, don't be surprised about where you are. You've always been this person.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, I rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
And I realized that since a kid, I've been, you know what I mean? It's nothing that can happen in my life that I won't be prepared for. Yeah. I might not be immediately prepared for it, but you know, when it's all said and done, I'm gonna walk away from the situation, you know, satisfied with how I handled it. So consequently, I'm looking 10, 15, 20 years down the line in my life.
That's pretty amazing. And it's, you know, that experience that's leading to this confidence now, having been through some of those things as a kid.
Yeah, it's not even confidence anymore, bro. It's not a matter of confidence for me. Yeah. It's like it's purpose.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's I live life in purpose.
Got it.
You know, nobody's perfect, obviously.
Yeah.
But when I wake up on a day-to-day basis, there's no conflict of where I'm going, what I'm putting my time to. Yeah. There's no conflict with the people around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how I distribute my time.
Yeah.
Because there's a true understanding about who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm putting my time to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful.
And it's purpose.
Yeah.
And it's challenging because some people identify their purpose at a young age. Some people realize what it is a few seconds before they take their last breath. And fortunately, could it change here in the future? Sure. But fortunately, at this stage of my life, I know who I am, where I'm going, and what my purpose is. And that's what distinguishes me from most individuals.
Absolutely. So, Sam, you know, obviously I know you were nominated the Walter Payton Man of the Year, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, my mother, and so I know a little bit about your community service work. And, you know, when I was growing up, my mother actually did some mission work in Zambia.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you just a little bit about your work in Ghana.
Yeah. My father is from Ghana. He actually lives in Ghana most of the year. Okay. And so it's near and dear to my heart. Early on, you know, when I say early on, I mean, you know, teenage years, younger adult years. It was more just about donating time, donating resources. Still to this day, because a lot of my life is spent here in America, my philanthropic efforts in Ghana have not been quite defined. I do have some projects that I'm working on that it's nothing for me to brag about because, you know, it's just giving back, right? Yeah. Where some people might brag about giving $5,000 here, that's not a flex to me. You know what I mean? It's just you doing your part. But I've yet to find that item or find that initiative or that thing, right, that changes something in Ghana. So I'm thinking about long-term change. Okay. Anybody can give $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, right? Yeah. That comes and goes. It's important, it's valuable, it's appreciated, but it comes and goes. At this stage in my life, I'm thinking about what is something that will create an everlasting impact in Ghana. Mm. You know what I mean? And you don't come to that conclusion overnight. Yeah. But there's this extreme amount of patience that I have because it's about an everlasting change as opposed to clickbait or somebody knowing my name. That's one thing about me. I've gotten to the point where I don't care for the attention or to be popular and things like that. You know, I came from a life where you had to do all of it, but now I shy away from it. You know what I mean? Because there's people who monetize their social media and things like that. I'm not really in that business, but to really be out here working and you know, being a dad and running a business and most importantly, taking care of yourself individually, I don't really have time for the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Social media stuff. And truth be told, man, I'm appreciative that you asked me. So now it's just like at the front of my eyes again, what is that long-term impact thing that Sam Barrington, and hopefully a slew of others will be able to put his name on it. If anything, I take it as a personal responsibility to bring other people back to Ghana.
Yeah.
So that I can give you dozens of people, right? But in terms of impact on the ground in Ghana, I can't give you anything.
Well, I'll tell you this, I'm going to keep in touch with you because I want to hear, what comes out of, all the work you're doing to identify what that right opportunity is. But, after seeing my mother, go on some of those mission trips, that's something I'm motivated to do myself. So I'm definitely going to be keeping in touch with you.
Well, I'm going to get you to Ghana too now.
Yeah. Hey, you get bet. I'll document it. We'll make a thing out of it. So anyway, I can help.
Every December you got to be in Ghana, man. That's a rule. If you're not in Ghana in December, what are you doing?
Why is that?
It's the it has a cultural term. It has a name, Dirty December.
Okay.
And it's just a hell of an experience. I mean, I can't give you the exact data behind the amount of people that actually travel into the country.
Yeah.
I think at one point in time, I read a stat that the country, don't quote me on this, but maybe generated $8 billion just in the month of December.
Wow.
Tourism is it's grown. The current president, his whole focus has been the diaspora and improving the social experience for individuals in Ghana, right? Whether that's, decreased toll fees or free schooling or whatever the case may be. There are a lot of festivals that happen in Ghana. I think historically, because so many people sent their children to school abroad and so many people traveled abroad, it was like, let's get back home in December and visit the family. And in 2017, we actually had the year of return. There's a ton of individuals, one individual in particular, Bosma St. John, who actually led the year of return back in 2017. And so since then, it's just been on a steady incline where people want to get to Ghana in December. And when I tell you it's an opportunity of a lifetime, it's an experience of a lifetime. So anybody who's listening, go to Ghana in December.
All right. What legacy do you hope to leave behind through your career and life's work?
I want to be the person that somebody can say, you know what, Sam helped me see better in myself than I saw.
That's powerful.
Helped me see better in myself than I saw. And it's very uncomfortable because that means consequently I'm going to lose relationships sometimes. You ever experienced something like that? Where it's like I've lost a relationship because I saw better in somebody than they saw in themselves.
Does that lead to you being harder on them? Maybe to a point where they can't handle it, or?
Yeah, I mean, but let's qualify what harder means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you telling me that you have a dream, right? And you talk to me about this dream 2 months ago, you talking to me about it again. And then the third time you come try to talk to me about it and I tell you, hey, listen, man, don't talk to me about the dream unless you're starting to put some action behind it.
Yeah.
Am I being harder?
No.
Or am I being a friend?
Yeah.
Now, delivery is everything.
Yeah.
Right? But that's my, it has a lot to do with coming from the world of sport, but it's just like, we're only here for a fixed amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know how long we're here, right? Once we're gone, we're gone. But my whole point is leading other men and taking care of my family. I really don't care about anything else. Yeah. Taking care of your family means that, you have to do well financially. Leading other men means you have to make an impact in the community, So those things go hand in hand, and it's like one of those things where you're accomplishing your individual goals. It represents the goals of a larger body of people, So I sit on boards around town, not because I just want to sit on the board. Yeah. It's purposeful.
Yeah.
There's a means to an end. The work that I do here at the University of South Florida, I love my school, right? It's not always convenient, but it's purposeful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of young men I run into on this campus, who something about my life I can share with them, and then maybe it's not an immediate solution, but it helps them in their journey.
Probably like that ride you got from the coach. In a lot of ways you get to be that guy.
Yeah, you get to be that guy.
Yeah.
Because truth be told, sometimes people need to hear that conversation. You'd be surprised how many young guys are, big bro, I'm going to the league. And I'm like, no, you're not. Not if you don't change this.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the first time they've heard that. Because if you're in college as a young black man, if you're in college, Caucasian, Hispanic, or whatever, if you're in college, sometimes that's all a parent cares about.
Yeah.
And my kid is in college. If you're making all C's, hey, it's not a big deal. You're still in college. Some families really view it that way. You know what I mean? And so I want to be the person that say, hey, listen, you're here, you're on a football team, you might even be starting, but what else?
Yeah.
How can you maximize this opportunity? Even friends, relationships, family, siblings, everybody. My dad is actually the same way. That's probably where I get it from.
Yeah.
And truth be told, if it wasn't for his guidance and, the wisdom and the advice in the same way he handled me, who knows where I'd be? It's like I can call him, hey, man, yeah, I just, he was there when I got drafted and he looked at my contract. He was like, is this a week or per year? You know what I mean? And that's because, he's a businessman and things like that. But my point is, man, helping people see better in themselves than they currently see and leading other men is what I want my legacy to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sam. I really appreciate you sharing. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Conversations. If you like what you saw today, please like, comment, subscribe, share, and we'll be back in the future with more exciting guests. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it, brother. It was a great interview.
Appreciate you having me.